Why would a successful engineer walk away from one of the most powerful companies in technology to build something unproven in a rented office in Kirkland? What compels a careful mind to gamble a personal fortune on the belief that players, given freedom and service, will shape an entire medium? Gabe Logan Newell was born on November 3, 1962, to a family that prized curiosity, books, and practical work. Newell spent much of childhood in California in a house that balanced modest means with a wide aperture for ideas. The protagonist attended Davis Senior High School, a campus tied to a university town that nudged people to treat experiments as normal parts of a week. A taste for hands-on problem-solving mixed early with an appetite for stories, the double helix that would later define a career built on both code and narrative. Harvard University became the next stop. The future leader arrived in Cambridge at the start of the 1980s, a moment when personal computers were leaving hobby rooms for campus labs. Coursework in English and computer science showed how narrative and logic braid together, how a clean sentence and a clear function share a respect for constraints. Newell found mentors not only in lecture halls, but in rooms where beige machines hummed under fluorescent lights, where long nights were measured by compile times and by the faint smell of solder. The campus taught a lesson that never left. Ideas grow teeth when they are tested against reality. Microsoft appeared on campus with a proposition that prized action over credentials. The company was young, hungry, and ready to hire people who could learn by doing. Newell left Harvard to join the outfit in Redmond. The decision traded an Ivy League diploma for immersion in the daily cadence of shipping software. Colleagues taught that schedules are promises, not aspirations, that delivery forces clarity, and that customers reward outcomes more than elegant plans. The lesson stuck and matured into a lifelong habit. Build, test, listen, and then decide. Early years at Microsoft produced an education in scale, in platform leverage, and in the strange alchemy of teams that do their best work when they feel ownership. The engineer contributed to early versions of Windows and learned the unglamorous parts of product making. Build systems break, installers fail on strange hardware, partners misread specifications. The producer's eye sharpened. Conflicts are best settled by demonstrations and by data from real users. Arguments without evidence waste time. Later reflections from the future founder returned to a simple point. Delivery outruns posturing. A turning point arrived in the mid-1990s. Mike Harrington, a colleague with a steady temperament and a taste for thorny problems, shared a belief that the personal computer could host deeper interactive worlds than the market had yet seen. The pair sketched the outlines of a studio where power would flow toward whoever moved a problem from confusion to clarity. Valve was incorporated in 1996, and the founders funded the company themselves with the proceeds of years spent shipping software. The risk was not loud, the risk was quiet and personal. Leave security, rent space, hire carefully, let the work speak. The first project pushed that ambition into shape. Half-Life began as an experiment in marrying first-person mechanics to a continuous story, one that did not rely only on cutscenes and mission screens. Valve licensed technology and rewired it to serve a tale about a scientist named Gordon Freeman and a research facility in the New Mexico desert. Early showings did not go well. A trade show demonstration in the late 1990s landed flat. On returning to the office, the team did something that reveals the studio's temperament. They rebuilt. Designers, programmers, and artists formed what insiders called a cabal, a rotating group that met in focused sessions to produce clear documents and playable answers. The shift turned a promising idea into a coherent game. Sierra Online signed on as publisher, bringing resources and deadlines, and introducing the small studio to a larger world of retail and marketing. Encounters in Half-Life were designed to feel like conversations with a clever opponent rather than like a marching pattern. Marines would flank and flush. Scientists would panic, cower, or follow the player when coaxed. The game shipped in late 1998, and reviews turned the studio from an intriguing startup into a force. Players replayed levels to watch how enemies adapted. Modders pulled the work apart and built their own creations. The simple decision to ship a game that welcomed modification had effects that neither founders nor publisher could fully predict. Counter-Strike grew from that invitation. Min Lee and Jess Cliff released a disciplined take on team competition that drew crowds to internet cafes and dorm rooms. Valve hired the creators and brought the project under its wing. Team Fortress arrived soon after, born from a community that loved roles and precision teamwork. The company learned a pattern worth repeating: find great work in the wild, recruit the people behind it, remove friction, and help them scale. The approach rewarded humility. Not every winning idea begins at a conference table. The shape of the company remained intentionally unusual. There were no permanent managers. Desks had wheels. People moved toward the work that needed them. Decisions were made by the people closest to the problem, and leadership was temporary and earned. The approach demanded adults who enjoyed responsibility and who could handle the anxiety that comes with freedom. It also demanded tools that made progress visible. The founder cared less about titles than about the velocity of learning inside a team, and that meant steady investment in build systems, analytics, and pipelines that surfaced useful information. Steam grew out of that mindset. In 2003, Valve launched a utility that many players saw as an intrusive updater for Counter-Strike. Outages, forced logins, and early rough edges brought loud criticism. The studio persisted because the leadership believed a direct relationship with customers would enable faster iteration and more reliable feedback. Over time, the service became a global store for personal computer games, a platform that could deliver patches in minutes, enable cloud saves, and keep communities close to the people who built their favorite worlds. Distribution was no longer a bottleneck with rules set by others. Distribution became a tool that creators could shape. Could a store become a community center and a laboratory at the same time? The answer emerged one feature at a time. Steam Workshop allowed players to publish and sell items. Steam Early Access gave teams a way to fund development by inviting customers into unfinished games. Steam Greenlight brought the community into distribution decisions, and Steam Direct later replaced it when the process stiffened. Each adjustment treated distribution as a living system. Mistakes were made and corrected. The studio kept aligning its tools with a principle that would be stated in a line that traveled far beyond gaming. Piracy is almost always a service problem. Service solves more than slogans do. Half-Life 2 arrived in 2004 on a new engine called Source and turned physics into the center of play. The sequel introduced characters like Alex Vance, who felt grounded rather than ornamental. Portal appeared in 2007 after the studio hired a small team from DigiPen Institute of Technology, whose student project, Narbacular Drop, had already shown a new way to think about space and movement. Team Fortress 2 emerged in the same period with a bold art direction and a humor that never undercut readability. The Orange Box packaged these efforts and demonstrated how range, when grounded in craft, can feel like a promise kept rather than a marketing trick. Crisis followed accomplishment. In 2003, an intruder breached networks and leaked the source engine and portions of Half-Life 2. The damage was real, the delay hurt, morale dipped. The founder spoke plainly to the community, explained the stakes, and insisted that the only path forward was to finish the work and to ship something that justified the time spent hardening both code and process. The team did just that, and the recovery reinforced an old lesson. Transparency balanced with resolve keeps trust alive. Another bout of turbulence came from sharp public remarks about console development. In the era of the PlayStation 3, Newell criticized the architecture and called the platform a waste of time for developers. A few years later, he walked onto the Sony stage to present Portal 2 for that console and to endorse features that would link services across platforms. The pivot was not cosmetic. It reflected the company's habit of updating views when facts change. Loyalty goes not to past pronouncements, but to current evidence. Live service work produced a new kind of classroom. Team Fortress 2 became a market shaped by player taste. Community-created items and cosmetic hats introduced Valve to the realities of digital economies where scarcity, status, and surprise interact. The Manco store opened as an experiment. The community market grew. Economists began to study behavior within a single game. Lessons learned there migrated elsewhere. Dota 2 took those lessons further, hiring the long-standing steward of a famous mod and turning a community tradition into a supported sport with a world stage. Hardware entered the picture as a natural extension of an obsession with inputs and latency. The company partnered with a manufacturer to create a virtual reality system that combined precise tracking with displays tuned for comfort. Valve later released its own headset and paired the hardware with a game that returned to its oldest universe. Half-Life. Alex arrived in 2020 and showed how virtual reality could carry story, tension, and craft without leaning on novelty. The work did not persuade every skeptic. It did prove that the form can carry weight when talent and patience align. Steam Deck turned a long argument about open platforms into an object that fit in a bag. The device runs a Linux-based operating system and uses compatibility layers to play titles designed for a different environment. Years earlier, at a gathering dedicated to that operating system, Newell delivered a simple prediction. Linux is the future of gaming. The bet was that control and service beat lock-in and complacency. The result was a thriving handheld that made a personal computer library portable and comfortable, and that pushed the industry to revisit assumptions about where and how great games can be played. Not every risk paid off. Artifact arrived in 2018 as a digital card game designed with Richard Garfield. The rules were thoughtful, the presentation strong, and early testers admired the depth. Pricing choices collided with expectations set by free-to-play standards, and the audience did not stay. The studio attempted a major relaunch, worked for months, then halted development and made the client available for free. The decision stung and taught a familiar lesson. Good design cannot overcome a broken conversation with players about value. Health issues shaped the founder's life in quieter ways. Newell underwent cornea transplants to treat a degenerative condition that threatened vision, and the experience deepened an appreciation for the disciplines that turn research into routine medical care. Recovery demanded patience. Work continued. A leader who already respected slow technical progress returned with even more tolerance for projects that mature over years rather than quarters. The company's exploration of displays, inputs, and optics benefited from that patience. A distinctive cultural artifact, introduced the wider world to Valve's inner logic. The Employee Handbook, an internal document that later circulated online, explained how a flat organization hires, onboards, and sets expectations. Desks on wheels symbolize a rule. People should be able to join the work that needs them without waiting for permission. The handbook warned that the freedom to choose projects is indistinguishable from the responsibility to deliver. It described an environment where the only durable source of authority is demonstrated competence. Community nicknames turned the founder into a character larger than the individual. The name Gaben began as a friendly voice line tucked into Half-Life developer commentary, where a support email address used the founder's nickname. The internet did the rest. Memes multiplied, photos from events turned into reaction images. A private person with a taste for jeans and comfortable flannel became an avatar for good news in the Steam community and a target for jokes when servers buckled under holiday traffic. The subject took the attention with a mix of amusement and caution and returned to the work. Leadership in this story looks like patience plus clarity. Newell nurtures small teams that know what problem they are solving and why it matters. Tooling receives as much attention as features because better tools raise the quality bar more reliably than pep talks. Valve stays modest in headcount compared to the scale of its influence and spends lavishly on time for iteration. A project that fails to excite the people working on it will pause or die. A project that reveals new possibilities and earns energy will grow. Money matters without being a protagonist. By remaining privately held, the company bought independence from quarterly expectations. That independence allows delays, cancellations, and radical changes of plan when evidence demands it. Lists that rank wealth began to include the founder's name as Steam grew, and the fascination with numbers pulled attention away from the quiet point inside the building. Independence is not a trophy. Independence is a tool. It buys time to explore and permission to say no. Philanthropy and civic gestures appear sporadically, often without fanfare. During the pandemic, Newell stayed in New Zealand for an extended period, along with a small group of colleagues. The time away from the usual offices led to a community event that thanked local people for hospitality and raised funds for charities. The interlude illustrated a temperament that treats unusual circumstances as opportunities to learn and to contribute. Work continued through remote workflows, refined by years of distributed development. An honest account of Valve also notes that the culture does not fit everyone. Some employees thrive in a bossless structure and produce the best work of their lives. Others prefer clearer hierarchies and daily guidance. The founder treats organizational design as a product in itself, one that benefits from tuning and from respectful departures when a fit is not present. Hiring happens in small batches. Teams watch how groups form and whether habits that predict success take root. Interventions from the top arrive not as commands, but as questions that demand evidence. Two short questions thread through this life. What happens when a storefront is treated as a service that must be faster, fairer, and more open than whatever came before, not as a gate that collects tolls? Why build fewer games than the outside world demands, when the studio could ship more sequels and harvest more revenue? The answers link back to the same place. Service earns loyalty. Restraint protects meaning. The founder is content to let silence cover projects that do not yet deserve daylight. When announcements arrive, the company prefers artifacts over slogans. Stories from colleagues supply texture. An engineer once arrived with a small physics toy, a prototype, without a clear purpose. The feedback was crisp. If others use it as a tool, it belongs in the engine. If it becomes a mechanic that changes how a player feels in a room, it belongs in a game. If it remains an isolated trick, it belongs in a draw. The point was not to dismiss curiosity. The point was to connect curiosity to impact. People who can turn experiments into instruments that others rely on flourish. Knives, to outsiders, might seem like an odd hobby to pair with software. To Newell, they are objects of craft. Conversations about metallurgy, heat treatment, and balance reveal a collector's attention to detail and a maker's respect for process. The interest mirrors enthusiasm for manufacturing, controllers, haptics, and the tactile side of digital entertainment. Hardware discussions often detour into how a grip should feel after an hour, how a trigger should respond to a light press or a heavy squeeze, and how fatigue can be reduced by millimeters of thoughtful design. Education never stopped. Observations about software, freedom, and platform politics hardened into a belief that open systems reward creators and players over time, even if the path is rough. When a platform starts acting like a tax collector without adding value, people seek exits. Newell saw Linux as a long-term escape route from dependence on any single vendor, and the choice to invest in Proton and in a handheld computer that made the approach tangible was the practical expression of that belief. Years ago, the statement sounded like provocation. Today, it sounds like a plan. Recognition followed, not as the point, but as a marker. Honors from industry organizations arrived, including a fellowship from a British academy known for celebrating craftspeople who shaped their fields over decades. The ceremony mattered less than the quiet return to work. The protagonist has a habit of downshifting from applause to schedules. The end goal remains unchanged from those early rooms in Kirkland with rented chairs. Make good things. Make them for personal computers. Make them better every month. The biography of a single person can never fully explain a company like Valve, and yet leadership leaves fingerprints on structure. Newell does not hover, but the room changes when the founder sits down. People expect direct questions. They know that opinions without demonstrations will not hold the floor for long. The person who shows that a design sings at 30 frames per second will be heard. The person who explains with slides that a design could sing someday will be sent back to build a test. This is not cruelty. This is a culture that believes software is evidence. A steady thread through the decades is curiosity about what games can do beyond entertainment. The International became a broadcast that rivals traditional sports in Polish. Steam Workshop turned creativity into income for artists who might never have applied for a studio job. Educators use Portal to teach physics and logic. Researchers study virtual reality interactions discovered by players in Alex and apply the findings to training and therapy. The people drawn to this work carry a similar trait. They are comfortable letting results, not rank, do the talking. Even the famous silence about numbered sequels hides a kind of dialogue. The founder understands that mystery can be powerful when the work to justify it is ongoing. Promises are scarce because promises bind teams to timelines that creativity does not always respect. The company prefers to speak when something exists that can withstand the attention that follows announcements. The early days of Steam taught that lesson with painful clarity. Launch early before a service is ready, and the wound will take years to heal. Across all these chapters, two short quotes keep resurfacing because they capture the ethic that turns arguments into software. Piracy is almost always a service problem. Linux is the future of gaming. Put together, the ideas point to a North Star. Serve people better than alternatives do, and they will choose the path of least resistance. Invest in open paths, and resilience grows. The years stretch back to Seattle and forward into whatever comes next. The anchor remains constant. Newell trusts that serving players first is both good ethics and good business. The platform exists to lower barriers. The games exist to explore ideas that cannot be answered by a slide or a speech. The hardware exists to give hands and eyes better ways to interact with worlds that would otherwise remain flat. The tournaments exist to celebrate skill and to give communities a place to gather. The company thrives when those threads weave together. A final scene returns to the moment when a Harvard student chose to leave a famous campus for a then-young company in Redmond, and later chose to leave a famous company to start something with a friend. Those decisions do not look reckless from this distance. They look like a person following a practical calculation about leverage. In a classroom, leverage comes from attention and from professors who care. In a corporation, leverage comes from distribution and from colleagues who ship. In a studio, leverage comes from tools and from a community that answers with time and enthusiasm. Calm endings suit a story built on sustained effort instead of spectacle. The person who helped popularize a platform, who shepherded a studio that shaped how modern games feel and how they reach players, and who kept a private life, mostly private, while the public face turned into an internet folk character, still repeats the same plain creed. Serve the player, trust the team, be patient where patience compounds, move fast where speed compounds, make the platform better every month than it was the month before. The line is not flashy, the record is.